Hello Cochrane, welcome to another edition of Fireside Chat with Mayor Jeff Genung. Of course, I am Mayor Jeff, and this today is Dan Crawford. He's joining me for the Fireside Chat this morning as my first guest, so I'm very excited about that. Dan actually is somebody I've met through the election, and something that I'm actually quite pleased with, that as you work with people, you get to form connections, and Dan is somebody that I've met through the election and into now as being mayor for the last 4.5 months. Dan and I have worked together, and I'm proud to say we've become friends. So welcome this morning, Dan, for joining the Fireside Chat.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on your win. The word on the street is there's a lot of great things that are going to happen here.
Well, I sure hope so. That's the plan. So, well, thanks for that. So Dan has joined me today, not just for fun. It is going to be fun, and I do look forward to sharing the council agenda with everyone, including Dan today, and he's going to pummel me with questions so that I get it right. But he's actually joining for a really important announcement, but we're going to hold off on that until the end. So you'll have to bear with us to get through the agenda and all of the important council work before we get to talk about what Dan's here today to announce to everyone. So let's just get right to it.
Right. Could I interject with just a suggestion, Jeff?
Sure.
I wonder if your viewers may want to grab a pen and paper because later on in our announcement, they may want to take a number down, and then they're going to give us a call. Because
Great.
We're going to be talking about a free event here in Cochrane, and you don't hear that very often.
No, you don't.
A free event. So anyway, please carry on, Jeff.
That's a great point. So people can pause this and go grab a pen and then come back and watch the end.
Well, maybe they have one close to them right now.
Yeah. See, here we go. This is what Dan and I do every day. Well, almost every day. Anyways, it was quite a busy night at council last night. We started off the meeting, actually pre-meeting, where we met with our Member of Parliament, Mr. Blake Richards. He came in and gave us a few minutes of his time, and we just had an informal chat with council, some of the admin with Blake, and just talked about some of the federal initiatives that he's working on our behalf, and I just wanted to thank him for the time. It was good to share some of the, we talked about cannabis legislation, infrastructure funding, etc. No decisions were made at all, just a chat with our MP, which is nice that he made time for us. Next, we moved right into the election, the election, that's a few months ago.
It's in the past.
Yeah. So we talked about, we just got the meeting going, and we had a delegation from the Cochrane High School, and there's a group of kids there led by Ms. Bennett, Stephanie Bennett at the high school, and she's a science teacher there. And they are trying to raise funds to put solar panels on the high school roof. So I've seen their presentation a few times, and I invited them to come to council and kind of kick off their initiative. So they've raised about $20,000. They're looking for another 100. So if you know anybody that wants to jump on board, please give the high school a call. Part of their presentation was that we lose 46% of our power in the transmission lines from the coal plants, and they're trying to change that with solar. Next up, bylaws. I know it's riveting stuff, Dan, but bear with me. We talked about a bylaw that we're going to have a public hearing on, and this was just a redesignation in the Heartland community for a little bit less residential, a little more commercial, flip-flop of lands to allow for the RCMP detachment building to be constructed in the future. So watch for that public hearing. It'll be March 26th. And that zoning was RM to commercial. We'll get into that later. Next, we had a Park and Rec committee struck by council, and last night we talked about the terms of reference, and we are asking for 8 people in the public to step forward, including a youth and a senior, to help us guide culture and recreation in the community in regards to more like sport fields. And we had the pickleball people come forward in this budget term, and that kind of got council talking about where does the initiative come from? How do we know if there's a need for rugby or pickleball or baseball or what. So we're going to reach out to the community and have the community help guide the process of what's needed in the community. So excited about that. So watch the paper. We're going to be advertising in the next week or so for public at large. Next, another land use bylaw amendment, this time in Sunset Ridge. And it's basically just a housekeeping item where we are dedicating some environmental reserve. Riveting stuff, I know. I'm glad you're still awake with me here. This is where it gets interesting. We heard from the fire chief last night. He has been busy with his team doing a wildfire threat assessment for the community, where they studied the entire community, and this was through a grant that they received. And they looked at the different parts of our parks and ERs, where environmental reserves, to see what kind of threat wildfire would have on the community. Talked about the use of different building materials, vegetation next to houses, and the threat of maybe a fire with the winds that we have here and what. In concert with that, we then heard from the Parks and Open Spaces group. Mr. Brad Luft was at council giving a presentation on directly related to the wildfire assessment. They've outlined a few areas in town that they're changing their mowing practices just because of the wildfire assessment. So we had, during the election, I don't know if you remember, Dan, we had a few groups in town worried about mowing behind their houses, specifically in between the pathway and a lot of these walkout areas where grass can grow right up against the people's yard. And people were actually mowing it themselves, and the town was interfering and saying, no, you can't come on public property and do that. We're held liable for that. So we've actually reclassified some of those areas. So now the town will be mowing it. And you can look on the website. We're going to put all the maps and everything, all the changes that have happened, so that if it affects you, you'll be able to check that out. So I was actually pretty excited about that, because it's something people were worried about, and through this we've addressed that. So council was very appreciative of that initiative. So again, if you want to check out the areas of concern, just go online, or and you can chat with us on letstalkcochrane.ca. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, totally. And I wanted to add to it. You may have this already coming up, but I heard several people speaking. I was just down at a coffee shop here the other day, and I heard several people speaking about this new initiative that you had brought forth with regards to plowing the cul-de-sacs. People were commenting on the positive results of that, how the water was running off much quicker now and not blocking the drains and that. And I was told that this is the first time this had happened in this community, to where we were plowing the cul-de-sacs. I don't know what the expenditure is on that, but boy, it certainly sounds like it was a good decision. Well,
thanks for highlighting that. I mean, we've had some great weather this week, but and actually that's what kind of spurred on the snow removal. I think we did about 200 truckloads a day for 5 days, so over 1,000 loads of snow were hauled away from the cul-de-sacs and around the community, and we've had some great response. We haven't got the total on what the cost of it is, but we do have a reserve that we have for such an event as this, and yeah, it is unprecedented, this community. So.
I think if you measured the cost of clogged drains and that, and the floodage that could occur, maybe this is a minimal cost. Did you have anything to do with the weather also that came just appropriately at the right time?
They asked me to hold off on the weather until after they had plowed the snow, and then I flipped the switch to spring.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll take credit for the weather as well then?
Well, anytime I can, I will take credit.
Yeah, I'd heard mentioned that you like to take credit, so I just wanted to get that clear.
Perfect. Well, thanks for that. Excellent segue into our land use bylaw review.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this actually is a really big deal. The land use bylaw is the document that tells us, the town, and you, the resident, and all businesses in town, how the land will be used, and also the parcel size and dimension of land, number and types of buildings, and how they can be used. And it's the primary tool that the town, it's how the town implements its vision, its goals and its objectives. So really big document. It affects everybody in town, whether you like it or not. You're affected by the Land Use Bylaw. So we're actually going to update that document. The last time it was updated was actually, I was on council then in 2004, and it takes a long time, and the planning department is going to head it up. They're going out to the public to talk to people about what they would like to see in that document. They're going to do pop-up stations of in the community at events. So instead of asking the public to come to us, we're going to take the show on the road and go to the public. So if there's a hockey tournament, that you'll see maybe a Land Use Bylaw pop-up station down there. Also, staff is going to be engaged, and it will be on the microsite Let's Talk Cochrane.ca if you want to go online and give feedback. So can't stress it enough. It's a huge document. It's going to have outreaching implications to everybody. And as we move forward and try to create the communities that we want in our town, this is the document that will do that. Well, that was pretty much the entire meeting. Then we got into a notice of motion, and I think this has raised a few eyebrows in the community, and it was in the paper last week. Councillor Susan Flowers brought forward a motion that she wanted to limit the notices of motion to council members to 3 and per year, and then if you wanted to go above the 3, you had to ask for permission to do so. So we had a little bit of a heated debate about that last night for about a half an hour. It did end on a kind of a light note where Councillor Wilson said that maybe notices of motions would turn into the next Bitcoin for Cochrane councillors. We could be bartering behind the scenes for, could I borrow your notice of motion? Ultimately, it was seen as a restraint on allowing council to come forward with new ideas. But we also had a conversation on what notices of motion are, what the intention of them are, and that as a council we've set a strategic plan forward with priorities, etc., and that we would like to stay on our priorities and not get too sidetracked with too many notices of motion. So I think we've kind of got an agreement that council will limit them on their own and make sure that they are of high importance to the community if we were going to bring something forward. So
I certainly, if you don't mind, I can add something to that. I've heard conversation on the street regarding that motion that Susan Flowers was looking to implement. A lot of people, I heard words like freedom of speech and openness and transparency, and that there would be a restriction. You would almost be handcuffing councillors from bringing forth something of maybe more importance than the previous 3 motions they had brought forth before. Then, of course, I heard a conversation about other councillors borrowing motions from each other to say, well, you've used 3, and may I borrow one of yours to bring forth? So I would suggest that what I've heard on the streets, and this is not my personal comment or opinion, but certainly listening to the populace out there, is a lot of people feel that you should have a continued openness, and if there's viable ideas that should be brought forward, I don't think a councillor should be handcuffed by the fact that they're not allowed to speak on something that may be very relevant to the community.
Yep, and actually that was spoken to quite well last night. What we landed on, and Councillor Flowers spoke to it as well, she was not trying to limit democracy, she was not trying to handcuff anybody. It was, actually I commend her on her initiative that it really did start the conversation that we needed to have as a council about how we're operating. Our staff is busy doing the priority list, and then every time we come forward with something, and it could be, it may well be something important that we do need to push pause and act on, but every time we do that, we need to realize that the high priority things that we've asked them to do are not getting done while they work on this other thing. So it's not that the staff are overworked, they're not complaining, they're not saying that please don't do this anymore. We're just asking council to be aware that when you bring forward a notice of motion, it should be of high importance.
I think something to credit the council for, and I assume this has been the way it's been in the past, but transparency and having a voice into the community gives you the feedback that you're looking for when you come forth with these motions. I mean, either through the media or through these type of videos, you're conveying the message, and it gives the community an opportunity to have a voice on these, and I'm sure you're going to hear from the community by whether they approve or agree with the motions that are brought forward.
Yeah, it's I never have a shortage of emails or texts or Facebook posts on how people feel, and I encourage that. I'd like to hear from the public more often. So that was pretty much the council meeting. So now that you've waded through that, and now we can get to the important stuff, Dan.
Well, I'm really quite excited to be here, not only as your first guest, but, you know, I had said at the opening, we're going to ask you to get a piece of paper and a pen, because now that opportunity to take a number is coming, and I think you're going to appreciate what we're doing here in Cochrane. We've got a tremendous committee that's been working really hard on this initiative, and I call it the event of the year, if you will. It goes to the fact that community rallies around individuals who stand out in our communities and make such a difference. And this year, we've chosen someone as a committee that not only has impacted the town that he's from, which is Okotoks, incidentally, but he's impacted the whole province. I mean, you mention his name anywhere in the province of Alberta, and probably throughout Canada. This individual has done so much to make a difference, and I should tell you, on the volunteering side of his personality, he attends over 100 events a year. He gives of his time, no expenses attached to his participation and support of events. He just gives of his time. He's 85 years old, and to me, he's truly a hero to all of us, and of course that's Bearcat Murray. And on April 27th, marking this down, right here at the Ranch House, we're going to have a tribute to Bearcat Murray. And what made this free is really quite unique, and very seldom do you have an opportunity.
Did you say free?
The word free, yeah, thank you for repeating that for me. I'm going to use whatever air is left in the room here.
Yeah, I know, well, the fire.
No, I know you're excited about what you're doing. I could feel the enthusiasm. Yeah. But getting back to this event, again, reiterating on the word free, it was made available to everyone because of tremendous support and sponsorship. We have someone who's covered our needs for the venue. We have the food's been completely covered. And along with this, not only are we going to have some guest speakers that are going to talk to the life of Bearcat Murray, but we're going to have the opportunity to meet him and greet him here in our community. But also, we have a fundraiser going on, and we're so excited about the fact that we're going to have a live auction, and we have John Copperthorne as our auctioneer, which is probably the best in the community at doing what he does. But all the monies, and this is where I'm really equally excited, this is really a double-edged event, if you will, is that there are a group of ladies working here in Cochrane trying to open a women's crisis center. And I mean, they've worked so hard at it. They've been at it approximately 2 years. And last year, about 15 months ago, we paid tribute to Jack Tennant. And at that event, we passed the hat. And I was amazed at the amount of money that we raised just on passing the hat. So this time, with a live auction, we're going to raise some money to help these ladies open this much needed Women's Crisis Center here in Cochrane. So we want you to attend. So now, if you got that pen and paper with you, write down this number, 403 850-1001. Text or phone to register, because the only way you can get in is to register. Yes, it's free, but we don't want to turn anyone away at the door. We have limited seating. I will tell you, we only started this campaign a week ago. We're already half full. So I'm hoping through videos like this and through following our local newspapers, and I'm excited some of our radio talk shows, keep your ears open for Gord Gillies. We're hoping to have Bearcat on there and talking about Cochrane and the events that he's attended over the years. I think this is going to be an exciting event. So remember, mark this down, April 27th, starts at 6 p.m. right here at the Cochrane Ranch House. We've got a lot of celebrities and dignitaries coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there, because I think we're going to have a fun evening. And I want to thank our mayor here, who is, I know, trying to do a great job in the community, and through videos like these, we can convey messages that we feel that are important to the community. So I want to thank you for having me on as your first guest, and I certainly look forward to hearing that phone ring or receiving those texts. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you coming here today, Dan. It was easy to have you as the first guest. The message that you're bringing is a great one. I'm excited about the event as well. I've actually invited the mayor of Okotoks to come. Hopefully that he can make it, and he can have a part in welcoming an Okotoks personality in Bearcat. As you mentioned, he is from Okotoks. And I think Mayor Bill Robertson will be in attendance. I've also actually reached out to the head of police here in town, Inspector Weir. She brought to my attention yesterday during a meeting that one of their focuses of the RCMP this year is domestic violence. And she, in that conversation, brought up how the need for a women's shelter is great in Cochrane. As the RCMP deal with domestic violence, they have nowhere to take anyone. So I was happy to jump in at that point and say, hey, you need to come to this dinner that we're hosting here in Cochrane. And so I'm going to be sending her an email to have her in attendance, hopefully. And it's building a lot of momentum. People are talking about it, and thanks to you for heading up this great initiative.
You know, I appreciate that, but it takes a team to make this happen, and I've really got a great committee, and I want to thank them.
Thank you for being my first guest on the Fireside Chats. I look forward to actually reaching out to the community. If anybody would like to come and join me, you do have to sit through the council part of the agenda. That is the intent of these, is to get the word out of what council's been working on. But I'm also really excited to have an opportunity for the public to sit in, just as Dan has today, interact with me about anything we're doing as council, as you have today. And I just want to really thank you for being here, for all the work that you're doing with your team on the committee to bring this great evening to Cochrane, and look forward to seeing you out on the street.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much.
All right.